Hello my fellow developers and welcome to one of the most important and crucial videos of our course, because in this course I will show you how to create forms using React hook form and validate them using Zod and taking advantage of the Chat.js UI library. So this video is enough for you that will take care of everything you need to know about forms and how to create them and handle them and validate them. So no more worrying about forms, and when you do this you can take this and apply it in any other projects, and of course in our main project that we are creating right now. So by default, when we installed Chat.js UI in the beginning, we also installed all the components that comes with it, like the input, the button, etc. One of those components is form, and when you install form, it by default it installs React hook for you and also Zod. So it comes like in one package that works together. The UI is going to be handled by Chat.js UI, handling the form is going to be by React hook form, and the validation of that form is going to be using Zod. So how do we achieve this? We can read about this in their docs. So right here by default it says right here building forms with React hook form and Zod. This is from Chat.js UI. We need to understand the anatomy. So we're gonna have a form, and inside of this it's just gonna be form fields that handle the data changes for us, which is simply every single form field is gonna be just the equivalent of our schema property. Like for example, we're gonna have a form field for our first property, which is gonna be name. Then we're gonna have another form field which is going to be for image, and another one for URL, and another one for featured. And using the name property we have right here, it takes care of the on change events, for example, for us, and it does that automatically just by the name of the property. So like if we have an input right here and we are passing the like the name right here is image, and we change the value of that input, it automatically update that in the form state. That's the whole idea. Now we go under right here, you can see an example. So we have a form field right here, which is the name is username. This is simply having an input, and just by spreading the value of fields, the field, now it's going to handle the on change for this input. So whenever we change anything right here, considering the name right here, is going to go to the state, look for the username, whatever you update here, it's going to update that on the state for the form. Very understandable, right? This is the installation process. We already done that. So now also when you do that, you need a schema. You know, we added the schema in the beginning in the previous video. That was for the database. Now we also need a schema for validation, which simply using Zod. Like for example, we're gonna go take like username, for example, we're gonna make sure it's a string. We're gonna make sure that the minimum length is 2, the maximum length is 50. This is an example. In our case, we're gonna do that, and also we're gonna do things like validating that the name doesn't have any special characters, etc. And then also after creating the schema, we need to define the form, and the form is defined this way. So const form equal use form, and then using this z.infer, and then the type of schema we passed with the schema that we have created right here. Very simple. And then simply we have to define the resolver. A resolver is just simply this React form. To work with Zod, you have to add a resolver that will take care of the schema we have, okay, and merge it with the form we have. And then we have to specify the default values. So any form, you're gonna have certain values, you're gonna define their default values, which is probably in the beginning is gonna be empty or null. And then simply we have a function which is the onSubmit, which is simply returns the values that we have from that schema, and then we can console log them, we can send them to our backend, etc. So as you can see, the process is actually very simple. So let's apply that into our application. First of all, I want to add a comment right here. So I'm just gonna go for this one, and this one is going to be for React. We also have to keep everything organized as I told you in the beginning. So right now I'm going to add another comment. This one is going to be for our utilities for our form. First of all, we're going to need Z from Zod. So we're just going to go import, and then all as, let's call it Z, so as Z, and then from Zod. This way how you import Zod into your application, and the rest is going to be directly imported when we need them. Now the thing that we have to do is create our form, and actually just go right here inside of here. Let me add this comment, form hook for managing form state and validation, and then I'm going to go const form like this, and this one is going to be using the use form. So we're gonna import use form from React hook form like this, and when we do that, we have now to use Zod. So z.infer, we have to infer the type that we have, and then we have to specify the type. So type of, and right here we need to add the schema. So when you add the schema, we have to create this. Let's call this category, and then form schema, and we have to actually create that because that's going to be the whole validation process for us. So let me take that. and where we have to do that. So I'm actually gonna go now and close the components right here. Let's go inside our lib right here folder and create another file, and this one is going to be called, let's call it schemas.cs right here. And here all we have to do, let's call this the category form schema like this, and inside of here we're just going to go export and then const and then the category for schema. And to use Zod we have to actually import it right. So import all, so we're just gonna go import all as Z from Zod like this. And now we just simply have to use that, and then z.objects, we have to define the objects for validation, and right here we define the properties. So the first one depending on our schema, so always keep going back to our Prisma schema. So the first thing that we're going to validate is the name, so we just gotta go name right there, and then we have to specify this one is going to be a string like this, so dot string. And for the string you can do few validation for it, like we have to make sure if the type is not passed right, so it's not a string, we can just have like a required or first. So let's actually have the invalid. So like for example, if you pass in a number instead of a string, so yeah, we can have that the category name must be a string. So this is the validation message that you get if you are passing something other than a string. Also, there is a required error if you are not passing anything in this name. So like we left the input empty, we're gonna have a required error, and the required error will say something like the category name is required. So I'm just gonna copy paste that because I don't want to bore you out by just typing, and also I can't even see the keyboard, so I'm just gonna go like this. So now as you can see right here, for the name is gonna be a string, is gonna be required, and this is the required error. And also if you're passing something other than a string, this is what we get. This is extra. I'm doing the validation just in details, but it's not necessary to be in detail. So, and the other thing, the minimum, this is the minimum length. Okay, so let's say for example the minimum is going to be just 2. Okay, we are not allowed to. And then you can have the message right here, or you can also define it inside the objects and specify the message this way and add the message here. Both are right, so I'm just going to do it the most professional way this way, and I'm going to have the message here, and it says category name must be at least 2 character longs. Also we're going to do it for the maximum. I want it to be maximum 50 characters, so I just can go dot again and then max 50, and the message is going to say category name cannot exceed 50 characters. Now we're going to also allow only letters, numbers and spaces. Okay, when you type the name of the category, we cannot have like at or like dash. Those things are not allowed in the name of the category. We're only gonna allow letters, numbers and spaces in the category name. So we're gonna use regex to do that. So I'm just gonna copy paste the regex, that's gonna take care of this. So regex is just simply gonna allow the letters from A to Z, depending if they are lowercase or uppercase or are allowed. Also we're gonna allow numbers from 0 to 10, and then the \s stood or stand for spaces. So we're gonna allow only this, and if anything like the at or like $sign or any special characters are there, it's gonna throw an error because this is the validation for it. That's cool. Now we also have to go to the second property. If you go to the Prisma schema here, we have image. So we're gonna take that. I'm just gonna show you how to even create a schema. So we're gonna go image and also z.objects, and for those objects I want this object to be specified. I can say this object is gonna have a property URL, and this property is gonna be a string. So z.string like this. So now if I have an image, it should be an object, and this object is gonna have the property URL that should be a string. So you see how things are very important. And for this image is gonna be an array. So not only is gonna be an object, it's gonna be also an array of objects. So we specify that it's gonna be an array, and we have to specify the length of it. That means this array is gonna take at least 1 object. Is very important. And we also can do the way we did it before, just directly and message here, or directly you can have the message there. So both are valid, both works. You can just go this way. I'm just showing you how to create this. Okay, but if you already know how to do this, you can just copy paste it and we are done. Now we're gonna do the same thing for the URL. So I'm just gonna copy paste it, because I'm not gonna bore you out because it's the same thing. We're gonna use the validation for string and also the minimum and also maximum. And then for the regex right here, we're gonna allow letters, numbers, hyphen, and underscore in the category, so URL. So in the URL, we're only gonna allow the letters the same way as the previous one, but for the special characters, because the link can have hyphen or have underscore, and simply it's gonna be allowed. Also, we cannot have like in the, because this is the URL, you're gonna understand this is gonna be like forward slash category forward slash, for example, in the name of the category we have like women dresses, for example. We cannot have like women and then 2 spaces then dresses. So the consecutive occurrences like spaces is not going to be allowed. It's the same thing of hyphens. We cannot have like woman then dash dash and then dresses. It could not, we can only allow one. So for example, in the URL we cannot allow 2 underscore between them, like we cannot go man and then underscore shoes. You know, the URL, we are trying to make sure that we create professional, you know, URLs. That's why I'm adding extra validation right here with the regex to make sure our URL are very, very precise and we don't create URLs that are very, very like distracting and has a lot of special characters. That's not the way to do it. We have to be professional. So this is why we are using this regex for this validation. And then also for the last one is featured. And this one is going to be a boolean, and by default is going to be false. So no need to do any validation, because even if we didn't provide the featured, by default is going to be false, and then we don't have to worry about it. Okay, so yeah, that's it for the validation. So now that we created that, now if you go back, we can actually import that. So as you can see, now we are able to import that. So now we created the form and we infer the type of this schema that we have right here. Now we have to specify other properties. Sorry, let's go inside right here. So now we need to add the mode. So whenever we trigger the validation, so this is why we add the mode right here, because this is going to be working either when we actually like on everything, when we submit, when we touch, we change, or blur. So on blur, let's say you are typing on the input and then you take your cursor out and then you click somewhere else, that's mean on blur. You're not now selecting that input. So that's the mode you want to validate. You can do that. So you want to do it on all. I'm just going to do it, for example, on change. So whenever I'm typing, like I am typing, and the validation is gonna change. For example, it throw an error, like it shouldn't take like the special characters, but if I removed it while typing, it's gonna remove the error, because this is mode on change. So it updates with me while am I working, okay, or while typing. So I can just go right here. This is, I'm gonna add a comma so you can understand that this is form validation mode. The second thing is gonna be the resolver. So the resolver is, as I told you, every like form right here, which is React hook form, it's gonna need the resolver to work with Zod. So for the resolver right here, we're gonna add the Zod resolver. So right here, this one I don't think it's installed by default. So the Zod resolver, I don't think it's installed by default. It's not. Let me try to import it and see. So if I go on top here, so this one is gonna be for the schema. Let me add this one right here. So this is the import. So the resolver right here. Okay, so the import seems to work. That means it's installed by default. So now the resolver, and we need just simply to pass this schema. So let's pass the schema and see if it works. Yeah, it does work. So it is installed by default even for the resolver. If not, you just simply have to install the resolvers just by going bun and then add hook form / resolvers. Okay, and it will install all the resolvers you need. Now after that, so let me add a comment right here. So this is the resolver for the form validation. So I'm just gonna add it right here. And then the last thing is going to be the default values. So for the default values right here, just specifying the default values. So let me just go right here and add this comment. So now I can just go for the name right here. So it's just simply gonna be, you're gonna understand something. For this components right here, or this form, we are passing the data to it. So for example, I already have the category, so I pass in the data and I have the name. So if I have it, it's gonna be the default value filled already in the form. But if it's not, it's gonna be empty. So by default, we're just gonna go data, if it exists, dot name. So if it exists, it's gonna put the value we already have. If not, it's just gonna be empty by default. You don't have to even specify this. If it doesn't exist, we can do this. That's also valid, but automatically, if not, it's just gonna put empty there. And we're gonna do the same thing. So now for the image, as I told you, I want it to be, so we're just gonna go data dot image right here. But if it does, this is if it exists, if it exists, because as I see right here in the schema, we're gonna have image as a string, but in the validation right here in the, what is it in the, in the schemas here, we have the image to be, this one, as an object that has the URL, which is a string. So we have to make sure, so by default, if it exists, we have to actually change it to the form we want to, which is going to be an array that has an object with the property URL right here, which is going to be the data.image, because the image is just a string, data.image, like this. And if it doesn't exist, we're just going to have it as an empty array this way. So now after that, we're just gonna do the same for others. So just some matter of copy paste like this. Okay. And then also we can extract the loading state. So to extract the loading state, we just can go under here, under the form, and to extract the loading state, we can just go const is loading and then form.formState.is submitting. So the is loading, that's mean when we are submitting the form, so you click submit, the is loading is going to be true, and by default it is false. Now we need to do something else, which is resetting the form values when data changes. Let's say you have this form but you pass new data to it. We have to also make sure that always I have the newest data. So we have to add this right here. So I'm just gonna go right here and add this here, which is this use effects right here. Let me add it here. Let me import it. So if we have data, so if we are passing data, we're gonna go form.reset to reset the data with the new data that we have. We're not gonna need those there. So simply whenever we have a new data, we're just simply gonna update that. And the reason I'm doing this, let's say you updating something and you update, we also have to refresh the information of the data, okay, like that. Because when you submit new data, you need to get the new data. So by default, when we have new data, it's gonna form.reset and push the new data there. Okay, and then also now we have the onSubmit. So the onSubmit, as we learned, we can just go const. Let me add the comments here. So I'm doing this step by step so you can understand. So const and then handle submit, we can call it whatever we want to, and this one is going to be an asynchronous function right here. As we've seen, the values, it returns the values right here. Automatically it's going to take the values of the form we have here, but we have to validate them before submit. So that's why again we're going to use the z.infer, and then we have to specify type of right here. So type of, and then we have to add the category schema right here again. And when we do that, simply right here, you can just console log for now, console log the values this way, like this. So now this is the most important part is done. We have done that. That is very cool. Now we have to actually continue to show some UI, because this is just simply logic and we don't have any UI for it. So to go with the UI, I'm gonna actually, because this could this form right here could also be in a model, so we have to specify that inside an alert dialog from component UI, like this, because it can be also in a model. But if you're not going to use it in a model, just simply on the new page, you can just simply right here return a normal div. And I want this form to be inside a cart, so I'm just going to have a cart component. So a cart component from Shatsi in UI, and inside of this one I'm going to add a class name to it, which is going to be with for here. And inside of this one we're going to have a card header. Just simply add some styling to it. So, and inside of this is going to be a card title, and inside this card title is going to be category information. So category information. Okay, I can't type. I actually should give up sometimes. Informations. I'm typing in the dark, like I can't even see the keyboard, but I'm just typing from memory. So we have done that. Now let me actually see the changes. So if we go back to our application right here, we are using the use effects. So when you do that, you have to specify you are in a client side and not on the server side. So right here, use client is necessary. Go back to our application, and as you can see right now, this is the card. It adds this nice border right here. And also, as you can see now, we have category information there. So we have category information, and when we added the with fall, it seems like to add some overflow, and it shouldn't, because maybe in the layout I should remove any overflow. So, but let me remove the with fall, because I feel like let me just go back here and remove that from the card, and let's see. So going back, oh, it's still there. We will look We'll look to fix that later, but now let's just continue. Let's not disrupt this. So after the card header right here, or inside it, so under the title I want to have a description, so we can go card description right here, and we can have just simply, if we have a category already, so if data exists.id specifically, to make sure that this exists, we just simply have to go under we're going to use backticks right here. So this is existing, that means now we are on the update, so we can say update, and then we can use the data.name, which is the name of the category. Like for example shoes, we'll say update shoes category information, like that. This is when data already exists, that means we are actually updating. But if not, we're just gonna have a friendly message, let's say, that says, let me just go right here, that says let's create a category. You can edit category later. We can just edit category later from the category page, for example. All right, so you can edit the category later from the category page, from the categories table. Let me change that, or the category page, something like this. Now if you go back, you will have this right here nicely is here. Now let's continue. So these things can be just copied. So now I want to have under the header, I want to have the card content. So now it's gonna add this nice space between them, and inside here now we actually gonna have the form you saw in the beginning. So we're gonna have this form, and as you can see, this form, it takes the form values that we have created, and we have to import this from React hook form. Actually, this one should be from it. No, this one should be from the components that we have, if I believe. Let me just make sure. So the form is gonna be imported. Yeah, the form is gonna be imported from there, so that's right, no issue there. So yeah, now inside of here, now we're gonna also have the form inside. So now we have the form inside, and this form doesn't take the action. This one is the form that we have, and we have to actually specify the on submit here. So for the on submit right here, we're gonna use the form dot and then handle submit, and we're gonna pass the function we have created, which is called handle submit, like this. This is the on submit, and you can add a class name to it. I'm just gonna add a space y, so vertically it's gonna have these spaces between them, like flex call, and then gap between them. And now it's time to actually add the form field. So the form field is what I talked about and we've seen on the docs. So right here you can just go form field like this. So this form field that you see right here is gonna be disabled when it is loading. So is loading when we actually submit, is loading is gonna be true. So in that scenario, the input or whatever we're gonna have inside this form field is not gonna be working. And then we have to also specify control, which is gonna be form.control. This is just simple React hook form. And then we have to specify the name of the property, one of these, which is name, for example. And now we have to render right here the components. So render right here is gonna take what is, sorry, we're gonna have curly braces right here. So it's gonna take the field right here, and we can return here a form item. So we can just go form and then item from the UI components of Chat-Scene UI. So field right here, it seems like I have an issue because right here it should be this way, like this, and the form field also I seem like, so this one, why am I having this issue? So I shouldn't have this issue right here. Let me redo it again. So this way, and then we open this one for the field and just simply open curly braces, and this one is gonna be for the field, okay, like this. And then here where we actually do that. Okay, so now it's worked. So now we're gonna have just the form item here like this, and inside of this one we're just gonna have we can add a class name, which is gonna be flex1, just to grow on all the space available for it. And inside this form item we're gonna have an input, but for that I want to add a label, so form label. And for this label it's just gonna be category and then name, like this, okay. And this is the category name. Inside the or after the form control, now I want to have the form control. Actually this is the form label. What am I doing? Form label, and then Let me just copy paste this right here, and then under that we're just gonna have the form control like this, and inside this form control now I'm just gonna have my input. So this is the input I'm gonna have from component UI, and this component, this input is gonna take a placeholder which is gonna be name, and now we have to spread the values of field here like this. And now it's done. And if we have an error, we have to show it in a message. So I can also have a form message here, which is going to be showing the error messages you got. So this is the first thing we have to do, and we have done it for one form field, which is the name. So now if I go back to my application, it should at least show me that. So inside the category name, as you can see right here, we have the name property right here. So if you type something, as you can see, it's validation on change. So if I remove everything, it's going to say category name must be at least 2 character longs. So I have done it, so it shows no error. But if I add a special character like at, it says it's not allowed. If I remove this and add space, it's fine because I can add space. But if I add like a hyphen, it couldn't allow it in the category name. So the validation is also working. So this is it for the category name. Now let's do the same for the rest. So just to save time, I'm gonna copy this one for the URL, and I'm gonna go back. So under the name right here, we're gonna have this one for the URL, and that would work. Now also we can copy the one for featured, which is just simply going here right here. So as you can see right here, we can see it is the same thing. We pass the control, we pass the name, which is featured, and in the field right here in the form item, instead of returning just an input right here, we are returning a checkbox, as you can see right here, with a nice description. Okay, so a description, it just simply says that this category will appear on the home page. So I'm just gonna, well, it doesn't import, so let me just import this manually. So I'm just gonna go inside here for the form, and it will import. And oh, it seems like there is an issue. So I was trying to understand what's going on for like 3 minutes, but I realized it was just VS Code bugging, and just by closing the component right here and opening it again, it was gone. So the issue was just VS Code bugging and nothing else. So going back to our form field right here, so as you can see in the checkbox right here, so just a form item inside this form control, similar to what we have done before, and instead of an input, we're just returning a checkbox, and this checkbox takes properties. So it's going to be checked if the field.value is true. So if not, this is not going to be checked, it's going to be false. And of course, to make sure that we don't have issues with TypeScript, we add this annotation right here, which is just simply as a comment right here to fix that issue there. Okay, so you just add it as a comment, don't do it this way, as a comment, and then ts ignore. And then on check change, so simply to change, when we change the value of the checkbox, it's gonna update the value in the the state. That's why we are passing the field.onChange. So when we change it in the checkbox, it's gonna also update here to true or false depending on what we are doing. And then simply this another div right here that has a label which is for featured, and it says this category will appear on the home page. This is just a normal, like you can see a paragraph there. So now going back here, let's actually see. So this is what we have. This is the category name, category URL. As we said, we can have one right here, but we can have two. So this validation is actually very, very nice. So only one, not two. For featured right here, you can check or uncheck. It's not important, because even if you are not unchecked, that's fine, because by default it's going to be false. So this way, as you can see, we can't add two underscore, only one. We can't have two spaces. We can't even have a space, because this is the URL. You can't even have a space there. So yeah, this is it. As you can see, this is the error messages. I didn't add the image because that's another video, because we have to create the components that is going to allow us to upload the images to the cloud and then actually extract that, show it. So it's going to be a bit of a hassle, but we will get through it. Now the last thing I want to do is actually just have a button. Okay, so I'm just gonna go right here and the end before the closing of the form, and I'm just gonna add a button right here. And for this button, I feel like something is wrong with VS Code. I feel like I need to restart it or something, because it doesn't even update or give me the possibility to. So I'm just gonna copy it for now. You know guys, button is a normal button right here. Type is going to be submit. It's going to be disabled when it's loading. So when we are loading, we're just going to show the text loading, and then after that, if we have the data already here, so that means we are already updating, so we can say save category information. But if not, that means we are creating a new one. We can show the message create category. And if we go right here, we don't even have the button, so I'm just going to also grab the import. I feel like just VS Code sometimes bugs for no reason. And yeah, and I don't have any issues with my computer. It's one of the highest end computers, and it still give us some issues. That's coding for you. So let me go back right now, and as you can see, we have added the button there, creates category. Now when I click, it's gonna trigger the validation, and I have this issue. Why it does this? So this issue is good that we run into it right now, because we need to fix it. We can't have it this way. And let me just go back into our code. Let me actually go back to the layouts. So I'm gonna go back to the layouts of the page. We have the sidebar here. We have the margin left. This is for header. If I remove the width fall from there, see it squints with the error. Now let me create the category again. Yeah, so that was it. Now it's fixed. So yeah, we have added validation for the category name, category URL, and the last thing that we need is, in the next video, we have to create the component that is responsible for updating images to the cloud. So yeah, see you in the next video, and let's keep going.